Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this Tab Value Series installment. Today's topic is increasing your profits by taking care of your people. That's not just the topic. We're going to talk about how to do that. My name is Bill Edmonds. I'm the owner of an organization called North Star Leadership. In North Star Leadership, I work with financial advisors and executives, business owners all around the country. And then I have a local business, and that's Tab, the Alternative Board. And what Tab focuses in on is bringing together non-competing business owners who meet together once a month to work on their business. So it's a peer advisory group, a group of people that get together to help each other grow in their business. So we've got folks from North Star on today, we got folks from Tab on today, and then we've got some people joining the call today who want to figure out what's going on and really how can I increase my profits by taking care of my people. I'd like to introduce my partner, Steve Cloud. Steve Cloud has been in leadership for his entire life. When I came to Columbia 11 years ago, they gave me a big job working as a market executive for a $100 million operation. I needed help. And so I reached out to Steve Cloud, who I got to know as not only a coach who gave me a wealth of information, but as a friend and a mentor to me. But Steve has led many organizations. He started organizations, he's managed organizations, he's run teams, and he has just a great credentials there. So, but Steve, we've been talking a whole lot. We hear all these terms that are used for what's going on today. And we hear things like, burnout, we hear lockdown, we hear depressed. We've got all these terms. I mean, what are some of the terms you're hearing out there?
Well, crisis. I hear people talk about being disconnected. I hear the term disruption. I hear a lot of a lacking of hope and a great deal of fear.
Wow, lacking of hope and a great deal of fear. So today, hopefully we can help you get past that. So let's just talk about where we find ourselves right now. So we're in the middle of this pandemic. And we see some stats that kind of give us a picture of what's happening. Alcohol sales, for example, up 60% in the last 2 months. Prescription antidepressant drugs up 40%. And in the states where marijuana is legal, cannabis is up like 65+%. So what's happening is this where we find ourselves right now, this pandemic is taking an emotional health toll on our country, on our workers. And there's an article that I recently read, I'll send out to you. If you have an interest, you reach out to us, let us know. But in the Atlantic, and it's called, Is Everybody Depressed? And so what's happening is people are saying things like this: I'm numb. I feel like I'm sleepwalking through my life. So I think it's important to realize where we were prior to this COVID-19. Prior to COVID-19, it's hard to say, pre-pandemic period, 5 to 7% of the people in the United States met the criteria for a diagnosis of depression. Now, today, into this 3 months into this thing, 50% of the people in the U.S. population are experiencing depressive symptoms. So we have challenges. Well, we've got greater challenges now, and the experts are really concerned about this next wave, this next curve that we may need to flatten. So there's basically 4 different groups of people and how they respond to a crisis. One of them is people who draw on stockpiles of resilience. These are the people that have intestinal fortitude. And when you ask them, hey, how are you doing? And they say, okay, they truly mean they're okay. They just have that extra something that we all wish we had. Then there's another group on the other end, and that's people who already have a clinical diagnosis of major depressive disorder. Now, this is what some clinicians are calling double depression. Then there's a third group, the millions of people out there who are experiencing depressive symptoms in a real way right now. And they will return to the baseline eventually, as long as their symptoms are addressed. And some of the simplest way to address those is regular Let me say that again. Regularizing sleep and food, minimizing alcohol and other substances, exercising, avoiding obsessions with the news. Anybody guilty of that one? Cutting back on aimless habits that might be easier to moderate when you're in normal times. And then the fourth group is people who are starting to develop clinical depression. They seemed fine and they had adequate resilience in normal times prior to this, but now that they're dealing with more difficulties, they have a propensity right now to start overt depression. So we need to be on lookout for these things in our own lives and certainly in the lives of our employees. So if we look at the symptoms of depression, the symptoms of depression are considered problematic if they last 6 weeks after a traumatic event, say like a death. So keep in mind, we've been in this traumatic event that we've had now for 3 months. So medical experts, as I said before, are bracing for this delayed wave of severe depression. So major depressive disorder has symptoms, and I think it's important that we know what these symptoms are. It's 5 or more symptoms, such as the following, nearly every day during a 2-week period. Here's what they are: feelings of worthlessness or inappropriate guilt, reduced physical movement, indecisiveness or impaired concentration, a decreased appetite or an increased appetite, and greatly diminished interest or pleasure in regular activities. We are fighting to grow our businesses. We're fighting in a difficult economy. So Steve, with all that in mind, tell us how we can solve all our problems and we can move into productivity, engagement. Tell us where you see it.
Well, with that list you just gave, I think all of us can find ourselves somewhere on it. And I think that within itself is a key point. Because if we're leading teams, our teams have not escaped that data. So all of us do have some impact. And the question is, where do we start? Because it is diverse, it is complex. At times it feels overwhelming. And I believe one of the great places for leaders to start is simply being honest with themselves about how important taking the team with you is in a successful business. In other words, if your team is being challenged or is feeling overwhelmed right now, the leader has got to be aware of that. But team building has never been easy. It wasn't easy, and it was greatly needed in the quote normal times. Now what in the world is it? And so the Gallup organization talks about how that in the old normal times, about 55% of the workforce had some level of disengagement. 19% was actively disengaged. And so the economic impact of that has been overwhelming for a long time. But if that was the old normal, when everybody felt like things are just rolling on, what in the world is it today? So team leaders have got to stop and be honest about how important it is. So many organizations say that our team, our people, are our greatest asset. And yet every one of those assets has been challenged by this time. I remember a guy named Dr. Howard Hendricks, who's a great teacher on leadership. He'd make the statement, if you're a leader and people are not following, you're not actually leading, you're just on a lonely walk. The truth is, I think a lot of leaders have felt lonely. It's been uncertain times, it's been challenging. And the real problem is if the leader is not connecting to his team where they feel like somebody knows them and somebody really cares about what's going on in life, they become disengaged at a higher level. And that's a price that none of us can afford to pay in our businesses.
Well said, Steve. Wow. Say that last line again. I love that. I think we need to focus in on that.
Well, I'm just saying that if in fact you have a high level of disengagement, or really any level of disengagement on your team, which we all have, it becomes such an impact that it's a price that's too high for a successful business to pay.
So well said. So Steve's talking about employee engagement. He mentions the Gallup poll people, and they've done great work here. And when he talks about being engaged and actively disengaged, and then that not engaged group, when we look at engaged, the definition of engaged is those people who are highly involved in and enthusiastic about and committed to their workplace and their work. We look at the actively disengaged, the definition there is those who have a miserable work experience and spread their unhappiness to other colleagues. Now, I know none of you have people like that, right? Well, I know as I sort of look at Steve's face, you're probably thinking, Steve, of people you've had that fit that category. And we sort of laugh, but this is serious. These are our saboteurs. These are people that are not only not adding to our productivity, they're taking away from us. But that next group, that not engaged group, is about half. And these are people that Gallup says are essentially checked out. They're sleepwalking through their workday, putting time, but not energy or passion into their work. Now, what if we could lift that group? And that's where the magic is. That's where the greatest opportunity is. So we talked about what it was like before, these stats about emotional health and depression. That's where we were before. Now we're right in the middle of this, and we see that needle going up. And so it's more important than ever to be involved in engagement. And I want to introduce you to one of our tab board members by the name of Glenn Matthews. Glenn is a third generation owner of a company here in Columbia called Modern Exterminating. And Glenn has just done a terrific job in increasing the engagement level of his business. And he's going to talk to us about some of the things that he did and some of the, I guess you could say, the sort of rude awakening that he got that pushed him into this hyper focus of activity and the results he got in improving the engagement of his employees. So Glenn, I thank you so much for being here today. I'd like to turn it over to you right now. Tell us what you've done.
Thanks, Bill. And once again, I'm Glenn Matthews, third generation owner of Modern Exterminating Company here in Columbia. And, one thing is when you're a third generation owner, sometimes you inherit problems and maybe lack of engagement from, unfortunately, from the people who were before you. So, my dad, he wasn't big on engagement, and it showed. When I got here, I knew we had problems, and I know we had some problems with engagement. And I think most of our employees, I'd say out of 35, 40 employees, I'd say about 30 of them were probably checked completely out. I mean, it was bad. And so I formed a leadership team in 2017. And we just started chipping away at the iceberg, and we just started replacing people who were not on board with people who were on board, and getting people who were not on board. And so then I hired my wife in 2019, and she and I really wanted to get the engagement piece going. So in 2019, we started a monthly family meeting. That was the first thing we started. So we call our meeting the family meeting because we do believe that we are a modern family. And it's basically a lot of good information, positive info, kudos, recognitions, jobs well done. We try to get everybody involved. We ask a question and pass the mic around and let everybody answer. So we try to really get everybody involved. We reinstated our Employee of the Month. So we started giving out the Employee of the Month, giving it in front of everybody so everybody could see the Employee of the Month. We started employee events like baseball and basketball games. We would go, I'd rent a box at Colonial Life. We'd go and we'd all hang out together. And I rented a box at the Firefly Stadium, and we went and we hung out together. We have happy hours. We've had a happy hour most recently before COVID hit. We had a happy hour at Steel Hands. So we try to do things like that. I also started a Christmas awards dinner at the Palmetto Club, and we give out 7 or 8 awards to people who have done an extraordinary job. We do it in front of everybody so everybody can get that recognition. We also send out surveys very frequently to see where our employees are and what they think. That Q12 survey was one that we sent out, And I got a lot of great information off that about my people and about how engaged they were. We changed our core values to PhD, professional, honest, and dependable, to better reflect what we were doing. We started a private Facebook group so we could all talk to each other, share funny stories or funny things we find on the internet. And I think that keeps people engaged. And we offer tickets to things like the Historic Columbia, the Art Museum, Fireflies games. So we also do birthday and anniversary recognitions. We started clubs. We started the Brew Club, the Outdoor Club, and the Book Club. And that's gotten people together to do things outside of work. We have one-on-one. Now, I've only got 36 employees, so one-on-one meetings I can do one-on-one meetings with every single one of my employees. Some of you may have more. If you have 1,500 employees, there's no way you're going to be able to do one-on-one. But if you need to do one-on-one with your key management. And so we started doing one-on-one meetings with all my employees. So I do one-on-one with every single person that works for me once a year, every year. So also we making changes to our company structures. We're hiring the right personnel, right people, right seats. We offer scholarships to conferences. We started a Spirit Week where, we'll have like Tacky Day and Team Day and all that. We give out cookies and just little presents. And I started and instituted Breakfast with Glenn, which once a month. Luckily, I had 36 employees, so I divided that by 12, and I have 3 employees a month that I go to breakfast with once a month. And that's opportunity for us to talk about anything but business. So we do not talk about business. We talk about, football or the last one I had, everybody pulled out pictures of their golf cart. So everybody had a golf cart. So we were all showing each other pictures of our golf cart, things like that. And I think that that's gone a long way. We also give out swag like, T-shirts and hats at our meetings we also have monthly prizes, monthly incentives, and we have what we call a kudo board. So we put it up at all of our meetings. It's everybody that's gotten a kudos for the whole month. And at first when we started, we had like 3 or 4. Now we have 3 or 4 pages of it because everybody wants to be on that board. And, we have monthly vehicle and uniform checks, and we give out prizes for that if people have good uniform and clean vehicles. We have special days, like I said, the ugly sweater day, the team day. On Halloween, we all dressed up this year, and I actually went as Will Muschamp on Halloween. So we just had a lot of fun with it. And I also built a new training room, and I think a couple of the tab boards have already seen my training room, and we're real proud of that. We put up a big TV and put in a professional speaker system, and have tables and chairs for everybody to sit at, and people really like that. And I believe employee engagement goes from the top down, not the bottom up. So if you have to buy into it first before your employees are going to buy into it, your employees are not going to start their engagement program. You're going to have to do that.
Glenn, that is tremendous. And here's what you got to know. All these things that Glenn's talking about, the majority of those things have been done since the fall, right, Glenn?
Yeah, they've all been done between late 2019 and now. Yeah. So it's never too late to start your employee engagement. And I bet you if you think, my culture is not very good, how do I start? Well, you just start one day at a time, one brick at a time, and start building it from there, because that's exactly what we did.
So let me do this. The key, though, is what prompted all this is you gave all your employees those 12 questions, right?
I did. I gave it to them the day you gave it to me. Like a week later, I gave it to them. And when the results came back, I wasn't proud of them. I didn't like it. It said that they didn't know where they stood. They didn't know if their supervisor, respected them. They didn't know if their work was important. They didn't think their fellow coworkers were doing a good job. Things like that. Things that really, as an owner, should tick a box for you.
So here's what I'd say. Glenn wanted to know, but let's face it, as leaders, sometimes we really don't want to know because we're fearful of what we're going to find out. But I give it to Glenn to have the courage. And again, you were glad to get those results, but it was bothersome. And rather than sulk on those, Glenn did all these things. There's only 12 questions there. And I'm telling you, it's so revealing. and you do that. And then what Glenn was able to do is tackle those things one by one, and all these activities and events he's had as a result of him tackling each one. Now, here's the great news. Glenn, you waited how much? 7 months? How many months did you wait, and you gave him the same thing again? Tell us about the results.
I'd say it's about 7 months later, I gave the Q12 back out. It was about a month ago when I gave the Q12 back out, and our results were drastically different. People knew where they stood. People knew their progress, their development. People knew about all this. And I think it was just because of our culture shift. And now nothing's perfect. We had some people that came back and still seemed a little disgruntled, but it's gotten a lot better. And obviously it's never going to be perfect, but I think you can come as close as you can by instituting some of these measures that we did.
Thank you so much, Glenn. What great success you've had. And, you know, for other business owners to be able to hear that today is just invaluable. But Steve, thinking about what we've talked about so far and thinking about what Glenn has said here, what else do you have to tell us or help us with when it comes to engagement and health of your business and productivity?
Yeah. Well, you and I have talked about this at other times, but I am blown away by how many podcasts are out today by some of the world's greatest leaders on this very issue. I mean, Patrick Lencioni, Henry Cloud, Craig Groeschel, Andy Stanley. Andy Stanley the other day was talking about that every business leader's got to be a shepherd in a crisis. Bill, I think you know about the president of Southwest Airlines and their commitment to engagement in the crisis was just exemplary to me, because this guy sets up 60 one-on-one appointments with his high-level execs. And it wasn't to talk about the goals of the airline. It was to talk about how they are doing, their family is doing, and to connect to the heart of these guys. So Lencioni uses a phrase of moving from professionalism to personalism. And what he says, don't have any meetings, don't have Zoom meetings, don't have organizational meetings without adding a personal touch. Hey, how are you guys doing? Really, tell me how you're doing. And so I know that's something that you care about greatly and have seen the value of, but this is one of the places I think where leaders in a crisis have got to engage with the heart of their team. And people have got to know somebody knows and somebody cares in times of crisis. Make sense?
Absolutely. So Steve, I know you talk a lot about, and when I first met you and you worked with me as a coach, you talked a lot about rhythms and life. Share with the group today your thoughts on that.
Great, love to. Well, I think disruption feels so much worse and so much more stressful for the simple reason we feel like we've lost control. I mean, by human nature, we like to feel like we're in control. You've used that data from Henry Cloud that when the human brain is in a crisis state, we lose up to 30 IQ points, I think you said. Yeah. And at times when I look at my own life, I wonder if that's too low an estimate. Because I can relate to this. I really can. About a month ago, you know, I was busy. But I just realized I'm not in my most productive rhythm. Nothing has changed radically, but some of that, the data you said of just drifting a little bit, watching TV later than normal, losing the edge in how I attack the morning, my level of focus and energy. And in talking to different business leaders right now, it is a regular thing of a lack of the energy and focus, enthusiasm, and hope. And one of the keys is restoring our most productive life rhythms.
Wow.
So, you know, I'll tell you what I have done that's been helpful for me.
Please.
Yeah, I just think take a break to have an honest evaluation. Slow down. This is the Stephen Covey principle of sharpening the saw. because the high DI personality, you and I on that DISC personality profile test,
Yeah.
you know, if things are not if we're not getting the results we want, what we know how to do is we're going to push harder.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing, we're just going to work harder. And pushing harder is not always smart. At some point, you've got to evaluate effectiveness. And so, am I honestly in my very best life rhythms? And most of us have enough experience in that we certainly can come back and evaluate it. There are a lot of things that business owners today say, I can't control that. Well, start with what you can control. I mean, you already mentioned some of the things that people talk about a lot, like exercise.
Mm-hmm.
People can't go to a gym. Fine, go take a walk. My diet is off. You've heard so much, you know what to do about it. Take a pause, do something. Same thing with sleep. When stress is there and we're overeating, we're staying up later, we're losing something, but it has a law of diminishing return. So what do leaders do? What do they lead their teams to do? Evaluate your most productive rhythms and control the things that you can. Mm. One of the things that I think people miss a lot is hydration, but it's honestly amazing the difference it makes in your emotional well-being when you control those 4 essential areas. So that's number one.
Yeah.
Start in that area. The second thing that really hit me hard will sound so familiar to our tab board leaders, because we talk a lot about the importance of your 90-day goals, 6-month goals, but a lack of clarity doesn't help in crisis. Clarify what you can. Clarity has power and vagueness is powerless. Mm-hmm. And so when we're going fast, we've lost our focus, what I can control. So what are the most important things I need to accomplish in the next 90 days? I'll tell you how important that is for me. I've gone back and working with a personal coach on just that. And so I was out of my rhythm. And so I needed to come back again. So what am I going to do in the next 90 days? And what are my goals to have accomplished by December the 15th, which is, 6 months from now. And so I'm building in that rhythm. I actually like the phrase, you always go further, faster with a coach.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, and I don't think you ever outgrow the need. So clarity, accountability, encouragement helps me to do what's most important.
Wow. Great advice. Great advice, Steve. Thanks so much for sharing. We've mentioned a couple of resources today. We're going to make sure that we get those out to you. For those of you who are watching this recording and you weren't able to see it live, we don't have your information. So if you'll see right below the screen there, you'll see our contact information. Reach out to me and just ask if we would send this information to you. We talked about the DISC profile. This is a behavioral assessment, great for understanding how you communicate with your people, how they communicate with you, and how they communicate with customers and clients. A great tool for engagement, increasing engagement. We mentioned the Q12 that Glenn did from his organization. We're going to send you those 12 questions as well. The Gallup Employee Engagement Report. I think it'll do all of you good to read the entire report to see the data there for yourself. Terrific resource. And then also we're going to send you an article that we wrote about productivity hacks for business owners. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Thank you, Steve, for partnering with me to deliver this great information. And if we can help you in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're here to help you. Be safe out there and be productive.